What it is, what it was, what it could be, y'all. Welcome to Disc Golf Justice. I'm a beginner disc golfer. I just found the sport in June 2022, so only 3 months ago. And today I'm gonna be making a video about my top 10 favorite discs to throw as a beginner. Now I see a lot of people making these videos, but they aren't necessarily beginners themselves. So I thought it'd be a good idea to make a video as an actual beginner myself, throwing my favorite discs that are helping me progress my game. Now, these are gonna be in no particular order. Well, they will be in a particular order. I'm gonna go from putters to drivers, but they're not gonna be in any particular order of like rating. So we're just gonna start out with the putters. Disc number one, I'm gonna just go from understable to stable. So I got the Dynamic Disc Deputy. The numbers on the Deputy are 3, 4, -1.5, and 0. So it's quite flippy. I really love to throw this on a hyzer flip. Sometimes if I need to throw a hyzer flip turnover and it's not too far of a shot, this is my go-to. Honestly, this disc taught me the hyzer flip. If you ask any of my friends that I play with, they know I throw the Deputy so much. Whether I'm in a tight wooded fairway or even just out in the open with a straight shot to the pin, I prefer to throw straight at my target. So I find that the Deputy works really, really well for that. If you throw it on a hyzer with not too much power, it's just gonna flip up to flat and ride perfectly straight. Perfect hyzer flip. Once your arm speed starts increasing as well, you're probably not gonna wanna throw this flat because it will just turn over on you. But I love using it, like I said, as a hyzer flip turnover to get into places where a lot of people would throw forehands. I get a lot of pain in my elbow from throwing forehands. So a lot of times I'll throw a turnover shot instead of a forehand. Number 2 on the list for the putters is the Axiom Envy. Numbers on the Envy are 3, 3, -1, 2. That is if you get it in the Electron Firm plastic. If you go with the Eclipse plastic with a Proton, I believe the numbers turn to 3302. But this one's Electron Firm, so it's a little bit flippier and it's gonna beat in quicker. Now this thing, when you're first starting out, it's gonna be really straight. It might even be a little bit overstable. The Envy has been one of my go-tos as a beginner. I absolutely love the way it feels in the hand. And other than another disc that's on this list, the Envy is my number 2 favorite in the hand feel disc. Number 2. Number 1's a little later down on the list. Putter number 3, I love the Emac Judge. Well, personally, I love the regular Judge to throw, but my regular Judge got ran over when I threw it out into a street one day. But I use the Emac Judge as my actual putting putter. The numbers on the Emac Judge are 2, 4, 0, 1, so it is a straight shooter. There's no difference between the Emac Judge and the classic Judge, other than the regular Judge has a little more of a bead on it. So that just really comes down to preference, but this is gonna be a really straight flyer for you, just like the Envy. I'm not exactly sure how well this Emac Judge is gonna hold up, because like I said, it's my putting putter, so it's pretty beat up. Moving on up to mid-ranges. Disc number 4 on the list, we got the Latitude 64 Fuse. The numbers on the Fuse are 5, 6, -1, 0, so it does like to fly. That 6 glide rating is for real. Now I know this is on a lot of people's list, people who are beginners, not beginners, it doesn't really matter. This is an absolutely excellent disc. As a beginner, if you just throw the Fuse flat, it's most likely gonna stay flat until your arm speed increases. Once you get a little bit faster, you can start using it as a turnover disc. That's kind of what I use it for now. I actually have taken the Fuse out of my bag. Not that I don't like it, it's just I think it's a little too flippy for me nowadays. But the Fuse, it's obviously highly rated for a reason. You can't go wrong with this disc. Latitude 64 makes some incredible discs. The optoplastic is super durable, feels good in the hand, and it's just a really great overall disc. Disc number 5 is another mid-range. I'm going with the Emac Truth, and I'm going in a specific plastic with the Emac Truth, the Burst Prime. Now it's definitely gonna be a bit flippier of a plastic, but that's gonna be good for a beginner. The numbers on the Emac Truth are 5, 5, 0, 2. If you have it in this Prime Burst plastic, like I said, it's flippier. But what I like about the Burst Prime plastic for the Emac Truth is it's super flat on top. And when you're throwing a forehand and learning to throw your forehands, that's really nice to have a flat disc. Even though I don't really throw forehands too much, I'm starting to work them in more because I've been having less and less elbow pain, but I love to throw this Prime Burst plastic Emac Truth on some forehands. As a beginner, it's most likely gonna be pretty stable, although the Prime Burst plastic is quite flippy, so it's gonna beat in quick. I now will use this as a hyzer flip disc, put it on a little bit of hyzer and just fly perfectly straight. And clearly I'm an Emac fan. I got 2 Emac Judges and I actually have 2 Emac Truths. I have another one in a different plastic, but I would pick the Prime Burst plastic as a beginner. Disc number 6 and the last mid-range that I have on the list you know I was gonna pull it out. The Disccraft buzz, everyone talks about it. And numbers on the buzz are 5, 4, -1, and 1. So it is a straight shooter as well. I said the Envy was my number 2 favorite hand feel disc. Well, the Disccraft Buzz is my number 1. I absolutely love the way this feels in the hand. It fits like a glove. I'm telling you, it's almost like Disccraft made this disc for my hand. I'm not a fan of deep discs, so if you have smaller hands or you also just don't like deep discs, this is a bit shallower, and it's like the perfect depth. When you first get it, it's probably gonna be very stable, I won't lie, because this is just a regular ESP Buzz, and it was very stable with me for a while. Now, since it's beat in and my arm speed's increased, I use this as a hyzer flip mid. It's kind of take the place of my fuse, what my fuse used to do. Now this beat-in ESP Buzz does it. I've also ordered a second Buzz that's in the Z plastic, so it should be a little bit more stable. Like I said, I just love the way the buzz feels in the hands, so I just want to try to minimize the amount of molds that I'm throwing. It's an absolutely great disc for teaching you how to throw lines and control your angles. While picking these up, I noticed a lot of them are kind of going in the same spot with similar flight patterns when I'm throwing them. For one, I'm a beginner, so my release isn't perfect, but for two, I'm throwing into a pretty decent headwind, so these are already flippy discs. My arm speed's much faster than when I first started, and I'm throwing into a headwind, so it's kind of hard not to make these discs turn over right now. I apologize. Okay, moving on up into fairway drivers. Now, a lot of people are gonna say, do not throw fairway drivers or drivers in general if you're a beginner, and I highly agree with that. The only driver I got when I first started was the Hades, and I honestly didn't throw it for a while. I just threw my putters and my buzz. But eventually your arm speed is gonna pick up pretty quickly, especially if you're putting in the field work. So eventually you're gonna wanna grab a distance driver or a fairway driver, or even if you don't, just because fairway drivers are gonna be too stable for you, you can kind of utilize that in your game as a beginner. Like a disc that may be super flippy for someone else might be really stable for you, and you use that as your guaranteed stable disc. You know it's gonna dump on you every single time. Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. To kick things off, we got the Westside Underworld. Now this thing is insanely flippy. 7, 6, -3, 1 for the flight numbers, and yeah, I use this, well I used to, it's out of my bag now. I used to use this as a roller disc, but it's so flippy that I would literally have to throw a hyzer flip roller. And it's got heaps of glide too, so don't throw this into the wind, but yeah, as a beginner disc, as a fairway driver, honestly, I think this is a great disc. Next fairway driver I got, stepping up a little bit in speed and stability, but it's still a pretty flippy disc. This is my current roller disc. I love to use the Disccraft Heat to throw rollers. It's very flippy with the numbers 9, 6, -3, 1, but this thing absolutely bombs with that 6 glide. For a while, this was my furthest flying disc. I think it's a great beginner disc. Once your arm speed increases, hyzer flip this, big turnover shots to get even faster rollers. I mean, it's a great roller disc as well. Fairway driver number 3. Latitude 64 River. And you want to talk about another disc that just goes and goes and goes. Let's look at the numbers on this bad boy. 7, 7, -1, 1. This thing wants to glide. It doesn't want to come out of the air. When you throw it, it literally wants to try to wrap all the way around the world and come back to you. I like to use this as a hyzer flip, or like if I take some power off of it and I want a shot with a big turn but come back, take a little bit of power off and throw the river. Between this and the Heat, depending on your arm speed, they're probably gonna be your furthest flying disc when you first start out. I don't think it's that great for forehands. I'm not very good at throwing forehands myself. However, when I have tried to throw these, they don't seem to like to handle the torque like other discs do. So I wouldn't highly recommend these for forehands. I'd still try it out, but for me it hasn't worked. Absolutely phenomenal disc for backhands. And last but not least, disc number 10, we have the Disccraft Hades. The numbers on this bad boy are 12, 6, -3, 2. So this is a distance driver, and I don't necessarily recommend you go out and buy this as your first disc. I did. It wasn't my first disc, but it was in my first order. Now I took it out of the bag just because it's kind of too iffy for me. Like, it's super flippy. If I have a tailwind, then I can throw it on a big hyzer flip up turnover shot. But if I have any sort of headwind or even no wind at all, this disc is most likely gonna roll on me. So I took it out the bag. And once you understand how to keep the nose down, I think that's the biggest problem for beginners with any of these distance drivers, or any disc in general. being able to keep that nose down. Once you figure out how to keep the nose down, which is an ongoing struggle, you're never gonna not throw nose up ever again. But once you can figure out how to somewhat consistently keep the nose down, that's when you're gonna start seeing these discs turn, and that's when you're gonna start getting major distance. So that's it, guys. Those are my top 10 favorite discs to throw as a beginner. Hopefully this helped. If it did, give me a big thumbs up. If you wanna see more content, please do me a favor and subscribe. This is video number 1, folks. Video number 1, but I'm just getting started. All right, but I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.